If you'd have asked me right at the start of the year if one of the tensest films I was going to see in 2025 was a British independent telling the life story of a man with Tourette's syndrome, wouldn't have believed you. But here we are. I'm going to talk about the film I Swear, which is heading into UK cinemas in October 2025. It's written and directed by Kirk Jones, and it stars Robert Aramayo, Maxine Peake, Peter Mullen, amongst quite a long cast, really. And it's a film that tells the story of John Davidson MBE. Now, John Davidson MBE is a man with Tourette's syndrome, and his tale has already been told across, well, more than one acclaimed documentary on television. It's one hell of a story as well, about a man whose life has been accompanied by a syndrome that was barely known about, yet alone understood throughout his youth. And it's something that's only really been brought to the fore in more recent times by people like, well, him. So his story, John Davidson's story, is on paper incredible. And it could have been the initial, I'm sure it was actually, when trying to work out how to tell it on film. I'm going to go scant on details. I'm going to assume you don't know an awful lot about this. It's not my place to fill in those blanks. I urge you to discover it on film. But John's family life, his background is fairly fractured, I'd suggest. And key to him and his life's been a friendship, at least was a friendship with a woman called Dottie. And Dottie, someone herself struggling with illness. And it's a mix of things that you wouldn't dream up as fiction. And so as non-fiction, it's sort of brought to mind that old cliche that on film sometimes there's nothing less believable than a true story. That how many times is just like, well, that can't be true. Even though it happened, it just like people just going, well, it can't be true. And so in this case, that was the challenge facing Kirk Jones. Now, Kirk Jones is a man who's a fair few films behind him. Waking Ned, remember that? Nanny McPhee, he did My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. I think that was his as well. He's got a bunch of movies he's done over time. And this is a film that he sought. This is a story that he sought out. He sought John Davidson out. I sat and watched the film with an introduction from him, actually. And as he sought to write this down and approach the telling of John's life, it just struck me, there's traps all around you here. I mean, I don't know how many drafts he wrote, but I'm going to go with quite a few. It is a considerable achievement then. I would suggest that Kirk Jones finds a tone for his film and an approach that makes often unbelievable sounding moments believable. So, I mean, just exploring the film, we meet John, who is played here by, certainly the older John, is played by the terrific Robert Aramayo. Robert Aramayo's been in Game of Thrones. He's been in the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon. And the film starts not far from the present day. And it's a moment, it's a clever place to start, really, because it sets the tone for what lies ahead, because we're introduced to John's tics. And we learn, and we're shown, they're not under his control. And it results in him sometimes blurting out the most inappropriate, shocking statement at precisely the worst moment. A kind of, if you're told not to do it, that's the thing he's going to do. And so that's not great when you're, let's just say, collecting an MBE from the Queen and the film doesn't blink, but the audience might. It is a 15 certificate film here in the UK, and let's just say it's for language primarily. But it's sensible to put that moment first, just as a storytelling thing as much as anything else, because straight off, what it establishes for I Swear is a really uneasy tone that weaves through the film, because on the one hand, I mean, you don't quite know as an audience member how to react, because some of the things that John does that we see on screen, they're just flat out funny. I'm just laughing. I was just like, should I be laughing? I don't know. I don't quite know, but that's quite funny. But then on the other, there's even the most potentially benign of moments suddenly has this tension when John's in the scene. I mean, there's a bit later on where Kirk Jones signposts something that's going to happen very, very clearly, which I don't think is the strongest bit of the film, but it's the one moment where you're just like, oh, okay, you're doing that. But a lot of the time, he just doesn't. He doesn't do it. And there's a real sense of the unexpected and of shock. And I sort of found myself watching moments of I Swear as if I was peering through the curtains, almost like a kind of ultra tense thriller. It's a really weird thing to say, but I was really on edge for certain sequences in the film that I'm not gonna like spoil. It's important, I think, to note as well that Kirk Jones, the director, doesn't showboat this either. He lets his moments play out. I mean, he settles his camera on the streets of Scotland, and there's no Hollywood glamour to it. I mean, he doesn't go like full on like, oh, those were the, you know, all deep and miserable and stuff like that. But there's just a feeling of real to it. Also, his casting is absolutely sublime, I think. What it means is he's got this material that's then handled and elevated with just like diligence and respect by the performers of it. Now, Jones's script covers a lot of the years of John's life. I mean, it bites off quite a lot, the film, and while there are moments watching it as a viewer, I just thought, well, you might go in a slightly different direction there. I wouldn't mind knowing a bit more about that. The strokes that he chooses to paint, I also get, they're understandable. In terms of Aramea, who I understand worked closely with John Davidson, and Davidson is credited as an executive producer on the film. He was involved with the film, and in fact, as I understand it, there was a conversation about him starring in it at one point. Well, Aramea is superb as the older John, and he carries the lead. I don't think he's carried the lead of a film before, but he will again. It's also worth noting that John is also played by Scott Ellis Watson in younger form as well, because after you've had the impactful opening, the movie zips back to John's youth and sort of builds back up from there. And you get cane happy head teachers, you get authority figures who do not come out of things well. And then you've got the added weight, really, of, well, it's a true story. And as a result, that weight is really felt. I mean, it doesn't feel distant from reality at all. Then as things progress, I mean, we meet Shirley Henderson, who plays John's mother, Heather. We get Maxine Peake as the aforementioned Dottie. And then Peter Mullen comes in, and it's like, it's and Peter Mullen. And you know that bit where an actor comes in for 5-10 minutes, adds texture, they bring something straight away as soon as you see them. Peter Mullen doesn't have a huge role in this. He has an important role, but it's Peter Mullen, and straight away, just like, I'm in safe hands here. Peter Mullen. There is also a really, I'm going light on it, but I just want to touch on, there are some sequences later in the film that follow this, but one in particular where we see John meet a young woman who also has Tourette's, and I mean, it's an absolute standout moment in the film. It still has me chuckling now, and it's still stuck in my mind as well. Now, countering all of this, it's like there are conventions that I Swear is playing with. I mean, it's really unfair to say that it feels like it's the framework of, I don't know, an awards film and a cinematic biopic. And it is unfair, but I think it's going to come up because there are signs of both of those in there. And I do fully expect I Swear to be in the BAFTA conversation, rightly so as well. And I also think that while the story that Kirk Jones has centred on and how to tell it has this end point, I would suggest the stuff right at the start, that opening moment, is a lot more effective than the ending moment. I don't think the ending moment is a bad one or anything like that. It's just like it bursts out the traps. It bursts out the traps. And when you're telling someone's real life story, I mean, one of the challenges is to find your way in and your way out. I think the way in is more effective than the way out. However, I think there's something more here as well. And that's why I think some of the awards stuff is a little bit disingenuous, certainly in terms of, I appreciating I brought it up, but working within the framework of that inverted commas awards film. Because there's two really quiet things that I Swear achieves, and I think achieves them really particularly well. So these are things particular to me. So there is a sequence in the film where Maxine Peake as Dottie, and Maxine Peake, one of Britain's finest actors, she delivers this speech with such a delicate, upbeat tone, a real joy, bizarrely, and it could have gone the other way. But it's a speech on apologising. Loads of better people than me have said, you take sometimes from films what you bring to them, same as you would a TV show, a game, a book. And so I brought something to that, and that moment really, really hit me. Now, I've watched the film twice. It's hit me twice. But the first time I watched it, I looked around the room I was in with others watching it, and I didn't sense it was shifting too many others. But there's like miserable old me struggling to hold back the tears a little bit. I mean, that was a real impact moment to me. And I think I Swear is the kind of film that could change someone's life. I don't think it's going to change everyone's life. I don't think it's not loads of lives or anything like that. But it's small moments like that, about a chat about apology. That's the reason for me why I think it can make a difference. I don't think a film should exist necessarily to make a difference. I don't think that is your starting point. But as the byproduct of it, I think that could be, I don't know, I'm talking to people more in the brain space as me, I think, could be quietly life-changing. I think films have changed bits of my life, and that bit, I mean, it just surgically just got straight in. There's a constant cloud of apology that exists around difference, and there it is on a big screen, casually smashed apart by one of Britain's best actors. And as I said, I've seen it twice, and that bit got me both times. There's something in Kirk Jones's screenplay that finds space for exploring, not in a morbid way, but exploring a fear of loneliness. And not just John, and John feeling lonely himself, but the people around him, and that fear of someone you love and care about, and the fear that they're going to be lonely, that they're not going to fit in. They're just a helplessness. Now, to be clear, I Swear is John's story, and it's well told, but there's also nuance and care beneath relatively conventional clothing that I think touches on those around him, and I really appreciated that. Ordinarily, when I review a film, I go and see the film. Within a day or two, I've written something down. I confess here, I've had I Swear in my head for longer than usual before putting my thoughts down. It's given me some distance, and I can see bits of it now that I think maybe that could work better, that bit, and I think people will have notes. People always have notes. But my personal feeling towards it remains really positive. Shot in Scotland, earthed by the footage that plays over its end credits as well. I think I Swear is a deliberately broad telling of an often incredibly raw story. And I think as a result of that decision, it gives it the best chance of being seen and finding an audience. And I think that's really important. I think there are many ways that Kirk Jones and his team could have approached this. I've reflected. And there's at least one character in the film as well where I just thought, you just deserve a film of your own. That bit where you sort of want to follow them, and how did your story get to that point? So there's a little bit of that. But I think I Swear is an extraordinary life packed into a very accessible and, to the right person, impactful film. Personally, I think it deserves success, and I think it deserves eyeballs. And I, for one, hope it finds both.